Alright Gadgeteers, welcome back. If you don't know from watching the first part, I highly recommend you do because it explains how we've gotten to this point. So I have a new Yoga 6 laptop. It has Windows 11 on it. I of course installed Fedora 37. It is the KDE spin of Fedora 37. But there's only one side effect. There's no available connection. So that means that the Wi-Fi card that's installed is not, it probably doesn't have a driver, but that's okay because we can try a couple of different things. Sometimes it takes a long time, other times it doesn't. So let's clear the screen here and do a uname -r. Okay, so the kernel is 6.0.7, which is, you know, newer. So what we're going to do, we're going to plug in this ancient 2.4 gigahertz Netgear USB Wi-Fi unit. But you know what? I've had this thing forever, and Windows 10 and 11 don't let it work anymore, but Linux likes it. So I have to unplug, I don't have to, but I'm going to unplug my Fedora KDE Live 37 installation. It already says it's not mounted, so I can just pull that out. And we're going to plug in my super high speed, I mean, I hope I am. I can never get these things to go in right. There we go. And let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll wake up and say, yeah, we got networks. Please? Yes! Okay. Which one's the fastest? I would say probably this one. So I'm going to get logged into this. And you know what I do. Hold up. Alright, so we are logging into the network. Connection successful. I don't know if you remember the command we were doing just at the end of the first video. Now, what I want to do is DNF update. Normally I would have to put sudo, S-U-D-O, in front of this command, but you can see by the hash mark there that I'm actually already sudoed in, so I don't have to keep typing the command over and over. Just makes things a little easier for me. So let's hit enter and find out how many packages there is for us to install. Alright, so install 31 packages and upgrade 743 packages, total download size 1.5 gigabytes. Is this okay? Yes, let's do it. I definitely don't want to have a dongle. Especially the one that I have that I showed you. It's really long and it just begs to be broken off. So I'm going to be careful while I'm using it. I'll only use it on a table, and then hopefully I can get the internal Wi-Fi working. I may have to compile drivers for it. If I have to do that, it's kind of a pain in the butt, because if you ever update the kernel thereafter, at least most of the time, you have to recompile those drivers and install them again. So usually what I do is set up the kernel to be skipped and go for a while, unless there's something significant in the kernel update that I need to have. In this case, well, I don't, you know, it's not like I'm running a server or a vital workstation somewhere. So the power goes, the screen goes dark really fast. It's like 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to have to make a change of that and see what we can do. We did make some setting changes to the DNF configuration file to make it download much faster. And we also asked it to use the fastest mirror. So as far as downloads go, it's really cooking. We're already at 650 of 774. packages. And after that, it'll begin the installing, which, you know, it'll take a little while. And then we're going to reboot, and we're going to hope that that fixes our issue with Wi-Fi. I don't really have high hopes, but, you know, you never know. Since we're waiting, and I'm getting kind of annoyed with the screen going dark every couple of minutes, I wanted to show you I am in energy saving settings, and I am changing the dim screen option. You know what? Nah, I'm gonna leave the dim screen where it was. It was set for 5 minutes, but I am gonna change the switch off after to about 30 minutes because it looked like it was switching off to me, not actually dimming the screen. Okay. So we'll apply, and I'm going to close this, and we'll find out. Should be fine. I wanted to show you that, though, so anything I'm doing right now, I'm going to try to show you what I'm doing. All right, so it's doing install right now, and it is flying. We're at 339 packages of 1,517. It's going to take a little while. It just goes to show, you know, even though there's a spin, as in an ISO to download, there are still many updates that need to be applied prior to you actually putting the system in use. So I wanted to show you, I also have, try not to laugh, this tiny little 802.11n Wi-Fi network USB dongle. So my experience has not been very good with it. It tends to disconnect from time to time, but this one I would feel comfortable leaving inside the USB port without something breaking off. But the last time I tried it with Windows 11, Windows 10, and of course Linux, it was not that great, but I might give it a try again just for the fact that I can have it and go sit down somewhere else instead of being here at the table all the time. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, right? Hopefully we get the internal Wi-Fi working. All right, the updates are done. We're gonna go ahead and do a restart. Sometimes there's drivers in the background that are still being installed. So if I do restart and enter, it will tell me whether or not it's unable to restart. Okay, well, anyway, I meant reboot. Reboot. All right, it's going to go ahead and reboot. I am going to unplug the Wi-Fi dongle that I had plugged in, and this will be attempt number 1 to get Wi-Fi working. So I'm trying to go with the very basics here, and we'll see. We might have to go into Windows and peek and see which Wi-Fi card we have. It might be a Realtek. I can't remember. Some other people have been having problems with this, so we'll see. Password time. So I don't have very high hopes, unfortunately. Okay, so this is going to get much more complicated than I thought it was. So what I'm going to need to do is do a little research. So I'm going to plug the Wi-Fi network dongle that I have in and do a little research and see if we can find out what people did. Hopefully quickly, and then I'll show you what we're doing. All right, well, I'm not sure if I was recording earlier, so we'll go for the gold again. I am using a Git option here on the Git website, GitHub. And what I'm going to try and do is compile the driver that is for the Wi-Fi card that's installed inside this computer. So I've already done installation of the kernel headers, and you can see I accidentally did not select DNF, so this command failed, of course. So let's go over here, and we're going to type DNF group install at the beginning of this command, and we'll press enter. 28 megabytes, not all that much. Hopefully it'll go quickly. All right. Before I continue, let's just have a quick look at the README at the very beginning, because he has some very important information. He says, if you use drivers from this repo for kernels 5.16 plus, you must blacklist the kernel versions. Failing to do this will result in all manner of strange errors. This code will build on any kernel 5.7 and newer as long as the distro has not modified any of the kernel APIs. If you run Ubuntu, you can be sure that the APIs have changed. No, I will not modify the source for you. You are on your own. I just have this feeling it's not going to work. All right, well, one of the things I did was find out which card I have installed. And I actually have... I found out that the card was a RTL 8852BE. Right, so I found another page on the Fedora forum, and it basically is the same thing as the previous page we were looking at, but it seems a little bit more simplistic. So I'm gonna try it, and we're gonna hope for the best. I've already done this step where we install the kernel headers and kernel devel, and now I'm gonna do, well, no, I'm sorry, I already did the group install of the C development tools. And now I'm gonna use this command to download, I believe, what is the source code that I'm going to compile from. So I think I'm going to go ahead and become root again, or rather root privileges. All right, I tried to become sudo as a user instead of putting in the command bash. So I've copied the text here. Let's see if it'll actually pull it in. We'll go paste, enter. Git, command not found. Install package with git core. That's one thing I do like about Fedora. So I don't have the command git, and they don't mention it in this tutorial here. So yes, git core has been installed. Proceed with the changes. All right, so it looks like cloning into RTW89. That's good news. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, I got the Realtek chip using, Windows. I could have ran a command here. There's a ton of commands, but I booted into Windows and just looked in Device Manager. I know that's not a Linuxy thing to do, but sometimes you just do what you know real quick like. Okay, so now we have to change directory to RTW89. So real quick here, I've heard that it's supposed to be right here, and it is. Change directory to RTW89. And over here we're going to do make. First problem occurs. There is nothing here. That would mean it's not going to work, but I'm going to go back here and I'm going to repaste. And we'll try to pull in. It says it's not an empty directory. Let's go back into it. Okay, it's not empty, it's just that the directories are hidden. If you see the dot in front of git and git ignore, it's actually, whoa, that wasn't a part of the plan. All right, well, hard to say why it didn't work. Let's try it again. Make. Let's change directory to .git. Now let's try make. No target specified and no make file found. Stop. Well, surprise of surprises, it didn't work. And I'm not sure why. So make was supposed to compile from the source code an actual driver, and then make install would install the driver, but we have a problem at make. So time for more research. All right, well, it's the next day. I can't remember specifically where we left off last night, but I wanted to show you what I did, just do a little recap here. So if you go to github.com, and LW Finger is the user, and he has, or she, a set of drivers, well, actually I should say source code, that you can download to install the driver for my particular Wi-Fi card. So I made a little cheat sheet of the stuff that I did that worked for me. I installed kernel headers and kernel devil, the C development tools. It's a group install. He didn't mention OpenSSL, so after the fact I installed it, but you want to do it sooner. You could combine the git install with OpenSSL. All you have to do is put git. You need to have git because that is the method you're going to use to download the source code from LW Finger. So once those are all installed, you do git clone and pull in from the GitHub website the necessary drivers. It will create a RTW89 directory in whatever directory you happen to be in. Okay. So I had a problem there, of course, and what I had to do was go into the EFI BIOS, and I had to turn off Secure Boot. You know, there's good reasons to leave Secure Boot on, but with most Linux systems, I'm not going to lie, I just turned off Secure Boot. So I tried so much stuff, I was unable to get my Wi-Fi to work. And once I turned off Secure Boot in UEFI, I was in. So my Wi-Fi was working. I added to etcdnf dnf.conf so that I could stop kernel updates at least temporarily. Now there should be a way to have the driver compile each time a new kernel is downloaded. And it's quite frequent. So when you do DNF install, DNF update, you usually end up with a new kernel version, even if it's a minor revision. This right here, it'll work for a while, but what'll end up happening is applications will be expecting a certain kernel version, and it'll be newer than the one you have. So eventually it'll cause problems, but the manual way to take care of it is just going through the make process again and installing the driver again. However, there should be another way. I've got to figure it out. It's either DKMS or DKMods. Basically, it will recompile the driver for you in the background. And if you try to reboot the computer while it's doing it, it'll let you know, the command line will let you know that it's still working on a driver in the background, and you cannot reboot unless you want to force it. Okay, real quick here, I want to show you, let's get that text a little bit bigger. If we have a look at dnf.conf, you'll see right there at the bottom here, I've added exclude equals kernel star, so it's going to skip it for right now until I figure out how I'm going to have it compile in the background. And if I have to, I could do it myself, whichever. I also added the max parallel downloads equals 10 and fastest mirror equals true. I think I did put in delta RPM equals true, and then this was the last line I just created. So once that's done, yeah, down here at the bottom, This is the URL that I use to download the source code for my particular Wi-Fi card. So what I want to show you next is where you go, at least in the Yoga 6, to go ahead and turn off Secure Boot. So I'm going to do shut down, restart, restart. And you want to be pressing that F1 key. Uh-oh, that didn't work out the way I was hoping. Let's see if I can start again. No, what's going on? Well, there's an option here to do UEFI firmware settings. Let's see if that'll give me what I want. And it does. Hopefully it's not so bright that you can't see it. Let me make this a little bit wider. These modern day computers really like having the tiniest of text. Anyway, click on the security tab, and if you scroll down here, and I'm looking at this from the side, so if it takes me a minute, I do apologize. Okay, here we go. Here is Secure Boot. Enable or disable secure Boot support. I disabled it. Once I did that, down here, it's so tiny you probably can't read it, I did F10 to save and exit, and I was back in business. So I'm wondering, let's see if we can do an exit without saving. Exit discarding changes. There really was no changes. And then this is my menu. I have Fedora Linux, the last kernel that I installed, Fedora Linux, the previous kernel, Fedora Linux Rescue, Windows Boot Manager to go into Windows if I wanted to, and UEFI. So I've got basically all the things I need. The only thing that I still need to do is go ahead and install various packages and updates and other tools that I want in my Fedora KDE spin here. So I'm not going to say there's a ton, but there's quite a bit of work still to do. And I think I'm going to make that another video, but now we have KDE, we have Wi-Fi down here showing all the networks I can join, and I am not connected to my USB Wi-Fi. That's actually right here, sitting on the side. And I'm happy so far. I've got dual boot set up. Everything's working kosher. The next step is to do all the updates. I want to add RPM Fusion so I can get packages like VLC. I will add the non-free and the free RPM Fusion. I've got a list that I got from somebody. I can't remember the URL, but I will discuss that in the next video. It's like a 10-point list that helps you go through all the things you need to do to pretty much finalize the loading of Fedora. If you only want it to be open source, you don't want any non-free stuff, you can stop here, really. You could add more packages. There's always more packages you could add that are truly open source. Let's see what we get. We will go to Discover. And there are still many packages that you can load. One of which, for me, oops, misspelling, is GIMP. So this one is complete open source, and it's one that I do use. Don't think that there aren't any packages available for you that you would normally use. There's still a ton of stuff in there. There's always some equivalent. Usually also package conflict found. Wonderful. I'm not a big fan of the GUI installations, so if I do this with DNF, it'll probably be fine. So maybe I do need to add a repository. to get GIMP, and I will work on that a little bit later. So there's quite a few things already installed. If I go to multimedia, we already have a video player, we have a music player, we have a camera if we need to use that. So usually the thing that most people use is well, not the Dragon player specifically, but a video player. But you have to remember, many of the codecs needed aren't there because they're not open source. So they may be freely available, but they're not open source. So that is where RPM Fusion repositories come in handy. So that's our next step. But for now, we've got a good clean base install. Now it's time to liven it up a little bit, and we're going to do that on the next video, part 3 of the Yoga 6 Linux install.